When you're flying, and Carl, you mentioned that you can't even remember operations where you didn't take fire. How often is your aircraft getting hit?
You know, you post-flight really heavily when you get back, and you can, when you're a new guy, you can't hear certain things, but when you're got experience, you can hear gunfire. You can hear it from 800 feet. You can hear it. You can dang sure hear it when you're breaking off target at 200 feet. But anyway, the bottom line is that we would get back in post-flight, and more often than not, and we would find the SEALs would bring in intel stuff, and it would be a drawing of a helicopter, and in Vietnamese telling the bad guys where to aim so they could hit the aircraft. Because most of the time they'd shoot at us and hit the tail section. All of my hits, not all of them, but most of them were aft of the cabin. There were some in the cabin, and they were uncomfortable. And sometimes, I know John got a Purple Heart, and he can tell that story. And I got one. Earl got one. I mean, it's no big deal. I mean, you get it because you got shot, and it's not necessarily heroic. People think a Purple Heart's a big deal. It's not a big deal. I'd give mine to anybody who wants it if I can have the whole back. Period. But
so since you brought the topic up, this is something.
Yeah,
about,
let's talk about
Carl
your Purple
Hearts.
Hearts.
Carl and I talk about this all the time, and so Carl was on Det 6 at that point, and we were out, and that one only had one of their birds. They had one in maintenance, so we went down to Det 1, and we formed a 3-plane formation. And so I was the pilot of one, Carl was a pilot of one, this Earl Schott was a pilot of the third. So we went out, took some fire, found a target, and I'm not sure who was first one in. I think
me.
You.
He forgot to add, it was a heavy fire team, and I was a fire team leader.
So Carl's
Those two guys are doing everything I asked them to do most of the time.
So Carl's the first.
So heavy fire team means you got 3 birds?
3 birds.
Okay.
So Carl's the first one in.
And you're going in to do what? What are you going in to do?
putting a strike in.
Putting a strike in. So Carl's.
When you say putting a strike in, meaning you're going to lay fire down onto
shooting rockets.
Is it close air support necessarily, or is it
wasn't a
some
SEAL team.
pre-designated
We had
target?
just taken some ground fire, and we were going to put it out, basically.
And so you're rolling in, and then Carl was the first one in. Earl was the second one in. So Carl peels off, and Earl's putting down fire. So as he's peeling off, that's when the second plane's supposed to put down the fire. So Earl put down the fire. By that time, Carl's supposed to come around. Then when Earl comes off the target, I'm putting fire down. I came off the target, and that's when I got hit. And so we argued today. I said, Carl, you didn't cover me coming off target. And he says, well, you were out of position. I said, I wasn't out of position. You were out of position. So I got hit.
So where did you get hit?
I got hit in the foot. So the round came up and knocked the tips of my tips of my toes off on my right foot. And then you saw the Scramble of Seawolves. My gunner that day was
he got
Terry
hit at the same
Purrington,
time.
Kid.
He was what?
Kid. And the Scramble of Seawolves at the end, where the round came up, cut his mic cord, came out, dotted his helmet, and dotted the I on Kid written on the back of his helmet.
It was in the movie.
It was in the movie.
Yeah.
And it cut the back of his neck like he cut it with a knife.
Yeah. And
How's that?
So he gets hit. I look back, and I'm trying to call him, and he's not responding. I look back, and all I see is blood. I go, oh, geez. He gives me a thumbs up, a big smile, and starts shooting again. And the round you cut the mic cord, just grazed the back of his neck. And, of course, when you cut your neck or head, it just bleeds like crazy. And then, so then we go back, land. Carl comes over, picks me up, and carries me into the infirmary.
The real story? Should we hear the real story?
Well, that's so. And to this day, we argue who's out of position, but we're the best of friends.
It's interesting. That's like in a SEAL platoon. That's one of the basic maneuvers we do. Like one person shooting. As that person rolls out, there's someone that's picking up fire right behind him. As that person rolls out, there's someone picking up the fire right behind him. That's the way it's supposed to be, Carl. That's the way it's supposed to be.
In a racetrack
Thank you,
pattern.
Jocko.
In a racetrack pattern, this veteran at that time I probably had 800 missions and fire barely knows how to pre-flight, yet he's in position and I'm not. But what's funny is we got back, and I didn't know that Purrington was wounded, and we got back and landed, and John was Oh, I thought, my God, he probably has a body shot. Check his body, check blood, and I couldn't find any blood anywhere. I'm looking, nothing, he's dry. I'm thinking,
I
I'm
kinda
patting him
walked
down,
into this room.
and I picked him up and gently carried him 600 yards down the infirmary, the length of the base. He's moaning the whole way. Meantime, Purington's bleeding, and he's walking, chatting the whole time. But John's moaning. I thought, he must have a brain wound I can't see or something. and so,
this is what I put up all the time.
and we get down there, he takes his boot off, and he shot in the big toe. So Earl calls
little
you.
toes,
Earl
so.
calls you. Earl calls him Nine Toes. That's his name.
Right. So then I get medevaced up to Bentui to the 3rd Surge, which is the Army hospital up there. And I obviously I wasn't that badly wounded. And they put me in the back room. And that night, everybody came over to see me. I had a little nightstand table. I must have had 30 scotch and waters on that little table because everybody brought me a drink.
Did you save your boots? The boots?
I do. And I was very lucky. The doctor said, because we had steel-toe boots, but it came up through the bottom, and he said it just missed the steel toe. If it had hit the steel toe, that would have ricocheted around and taken all your toes out.
John has the boot on a nice little stand in his living room. He's in there, where there's a sprinkler around it and music and so forth. He's got a plaque there.
So, but I do, and I have the round that came up.
Okay,
He's
where'd you
got
recover the round from?
He's got the round. Jeez.
So it came up, went through my foot, and then hit me on the side of the leg. And I didn't know you can only feel one pain at a time. And it hit me on the side of the leg, and when I was getting out of the helo, I saw this round down by the collective, so I picked it up and put it in my pocket. It was 2 days later, I was getting out of bed, and I bumped my knee, and I go, geez, that really hurts. And I had a big welt about this big around on the inside of my thigh there. And so you can only feel one pain. I was just feeling my toes at the time. A couple of days later, I was feeling the other one. But that was the round.
Who was the CO then?
Oh, so it was a change of command. That day I got shot was a change of command. And Captain Bergstrom was taking over from Captain Twite. And the tradition was that the first guy that got shot, the CO had to buy him a bottle of scotch.
So he did it for a bottle of scotch.
So we had an officers meeting, I don't know, a month later or something like that, and sure enough, he gave me a bottle of scotch. Brought it back to that and shared it with the team.
Was it cheap? I can't remember.
I don't know, it was Drewers or something like that. So.